There's one thing we can say for sure about U.S. President Donald Trump's trade talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping: both men think they're playing the other for a fool.
Folks can debate who's the real dupe in the Phase 1 negotiations. On balance, though, Xi seemed to get the better of the art of the deal. White House, Trump didn't score much more than the U.S. had with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The extra $200 billion of U.S. goods China will buy doesn't alter the mechanics of the trade relationship one iota.
Yet might Wall Street end up being the loser here?
Odd question, perhaps, given that the U.S. investment game just won unprecedented access to China's financial sector. Just not the kinds of assets Wall Street's small army of lobbyists might have preferred. Once U.S. institutions apply for asset management licenses, they will soon be able to buy non-performing loans directly from mainland banks, and increase their exposure to the debt stumble for which many observers think Beijing is due.
And just like that, U.S. pensioners will backstop China's $40 trillion financial system. Quipped analysts at Zero Hedge.
Snark aside, you have to wonder why investors still traumatized by Wall Street's subprime crisis would want any part of China's so-called Minsky moment. That's when a debt and credit-driven boom meets a nasty end. No industrializing economy has avoided one. Not Japan in 1990, nor Latin America in 1994, Southeast Asia in 1997, Russia in 1998, nor the US in 2008. Can China beat the system, so to speak?
No one can say, of course. Minsky-type reckonings tend to come seemingly out of nowhere, faster than naysayers expect and with more virulent fallout than many thought possible. What makes China such a different animal is its scale. It morphed into the second biggest economy long before approaching the orbit of developed nations.
When Japan's crash unfolded 2 decades ago, it was among the 5 biggest industrialized nations. China is far from being welcomed into today's group of 7, which tends only to welcome democratic market economies into its ranks.
More on Forbes: bull market in deflation makes 2020 a dangerous year.
China also has become more of a black box since Xi took the reins in 2012. Hopes of China's strongest leader in generations would have the confidence to free the media and ease up on internet censorship were dashed early. As 2020 begins, strongman Xi is more afraid of Facebook than bond defaults.
Credit rating companies have a reasonably shallow understanding of where the real cracks lie. Spreads between government benchmarks and corporate, local government and other IOUs don't tend to provide the warning signs investors find elsewhere.
So if you, like most, were blindsided by the 2008 Lehman shock, imagine how precipitously China's reckoning might spark a global turmoil. That, of course, is not the most likely scenario. Indeed, investors don't tend to get fantastically rich betting against China. Just ask hedge fund manager Kyle Bass of Heyman Capital, who until mid-2019 had been shorting the yuan.
China's government has vast resources to stabilize its economy. They include about $3.1 trillion of foreign exchange reserves. That doesn't mean U.S. investment banks should expose themselves to the least transparent corner of China's labyrinthine financial system.
Before now, only the secondary market was open to U.S. players via asset management outfits. Soon they can go right to the source. Great news for China Inc., where bad loans exceed $320 billion from what we know. Banks, many of them in provincial areas, are keen to unload those assets to strengthen balance sheets. And if Wall Street types want them, fine.
Yet China's provincial entities aren't prized for their transparency or international standards of risk mitigation. Everything from disclosure to oversight to legal certainty is decidedly hazy.
There's a reason why provincial China has so many asset management companies, more than 50 were founded in the last few years, to tackle bad loans. That's where the lion's share of dodgy debt is building. The way municipal leaders win favor in Beijing is, for better or worse, producing growth above the national average. Debt taken on to build all those 6-lane highways, international hotels, conference facilities and white elephant shopping centers is under strain as growth slows.
China disposed of about $289 billion of bad loans in 2019 amid national efforts to curb high-risk lending. The China Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, or CBIRC, says it will continue to dismantle a vast, roughly $10 trillion, shadow banking system. That, of course, will cause liquidity shortfalls that could trigger a chain reaction, as People's Bank of China Policy Board member Ma Jun warned last month.
More on Forbes, China's $13 trillion problem is becoming everyone's.
Never mind the repayment dynamics U.S. investors might face. The deal Trump signed with Xi's government promises American punters can invest on a non-discriminatory basis with locals. Perhaps, but given China's opacity, the vagaries of legal remedies and the intimacy inherent to a business culture based on tight relationships, this is anyone's guess. The rights of creditors remain a bit of a mystery.
With any luck, a Phase 2 deal with China will give Wall Street access to a much broader universe of debt instruments and sectors in a $40 trillion system. At the moment, though, delving into the murkiest corner of China Inc. may be a fool's errand.